Hello everyone. Some of you are doing awesome at submitting the videos. However, I'm still missing some from week 1. So like I said, 30 seconds to a minute and 30 seconds. If you could just get them submitted to me via email or Moodle. I noticed that some of you were able to upload via Moodle. So if that works better for you, go ahead and do that. I am for whatever works easier and quickest for all of you. I don't want this to be stressful, but again, this is a physical practice, so I do need submissions if we're not going to be in person. We are still going to meet tomorrow, Monday, September 14th, around 5:15, 5:30, right in the arts field. Yeah, that's that. So if you can't make it tomorrow, no big deal. Just make sure I get your submissions of videos. That's from week 1 all the way through this week, okay? So today is Chaturanga, hip hinge, and sun salutation A. When you submit these videos, if you're not going to be in class tomorrow, if you're not going to be in the physical presence of me, do them separately so that they don't take up too much space on your phones or your computers, and you're not worrying about getting them submitted or they're not sending, okay? So 3 little short videos for what we're doing today, nothing crazy, okay? We're gonna start with that Chaturanga again. A couple things to warm up to get your bodies ready for it will be to go through all of the previous weeks of the shoulder cars, the wrist cars, the neck cars, the practicing of your push-ups, whether it be from the wall, from a couch, from a chair, from a coffee table, from the floor. And being on the floor, it could be from your knees or from your toes. Things that you don't want to happen when you're doing that push-up in preparation for Chaturanga is the sagging of the belly. You don't want to do a belly flop down onto the floor. It's not going to build up the back body. Remember, there's a couple exercises that you could be doing as well that I discussed last week with just some gentle rowing or some tricep extension, things like that you could do in your everyday, workout plan. So when we do Chaturanga, you don't have to submit this in the video, but I need you to at least warm up your body a little bit with some of the previous works exercises, okay? So the wrist rolling, the wrist push-ups, anything that we've gone over in the past week, do that first, but you don't have to record it, okay? I am not going to record that right now. I'm just going to talk about Chaturanga a little bit more. So when we do Chaturanga, there's always the option to go from our knees. So as we come into tabletop pose, some things we can think about while we're here too are to do some scapular push-ups. So what that looks like is just taking those 2 bones, those 2 wing bones that are on the back of your body, and squeezing them together and then spreading them apart. Squeeze them together and then spread them apart. One more time, squeeze them together and spread them apart. And again, just working through some of that wrist range of motion, getting yourself ready. Now, as you prepare for your Chaturanga, you can't come from it at tabletop pose. The shoulders can't be over the wrists for this because you're going to look like this and your butt's going to stick straight up in the air. That's not what we're trying to achieve here. So what you want to do is you want to walk your hands a little further in front of you. Shift your weight forward onto your knees so that your torso is in a nice long line. That means your tailbone is pointing towards your heels and the crown of your head is pointing forward so that as you lower down, the elbows bend by the sides. You can hold this hover and then release back up, okay? If the hover is too much to hold, just lower all the way down to the ground. Nice and smooth. What we're trying to avoid is like really straining and arching our backs to lift up or belly flopping down. We don't want any of that. It's not going to allow our body to build that strength that we need for a regular Chaturanga practice, which is typically present in a regular vinyasa class. Okay, so when we're prepping for that, again, start from your knees. Even if you think you're strong enough, start from your knees. Get nice and smooth in this line. Here we go. We're hovering and then back up. Okay? Now, for those of you that want to explore your legs out, you'll start in a plank pose. Same thing. You're thinking about the back body kind of cinching together as you lower down all the way. Good. Untucking your toes and relaxing. Now, again, to get back out of this, you don't have to go from your toes. You can go from your knees, as my dog sits right on top of my head, and lift back up. Okay? So, Chaturanga. It is a hard pose, probably one of the hardest in our vinyasa yoga practices, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that we can't build strength to achieve this. Okay, it's very achievable. We just have to listen to our bodies, pay attention, see where we're weak, and work on those components, okay? So, moving on to our hip hinge for our flow forward. The movement comes from your hips. That's why it's called a hip hinge. So we're not using our back. We're just using our hips and our legs to power the movement. So we're hinging back and then forward. Good. Hinge back and then forward. Hinge back, forward. Okay? So as we come into our sun salutation A, which includes both a hip hinge and chaturanga, we will sweep our arms up over our head. See, this is where our shoulder cars will come into play to loosening up those shoulders a bit. Then as we bow forward, we're going to push our hips back, reach the crown of the head forward, and then fold at the end. Keep a nice little bend in the knees and tuck the chin all the way into the chest, finding a little spinal flexion here. Now, as we lengthen our bodies long, we're going to press back into that hip hinge, maybe even bringing our hands right up on top of our thighs if our hamstrings are a little too tight. Again, still hip hinging here. Everything is staying nice and neutral. As I fold, I'm going to bend my knees again, plant my palms, and tuck my chin. Step one foot back, followed by the other. Now we're in plank pose. Okay, from here, you can drop your knees down to the ground if you need to, or lower through chaturanga. From chaturanga, you're going to press into the shoelace sides of your feet, slide your hands right back in line with your chest, and press up into tall cobra. Good. If tall cobra feels too much for you, back it off a little bit and come into baby cobra. Still think about your tailbone being towards your heels, crown of the head still lifting up and out. Good. So whether you're in this tall cobra or baby cobra, whichever one you're in, you're going to come all the way out of it. Good. From here, we're going to bend our heels in. Push ourselves back up into that extended tabletop pose. Drop our heels down to the ground and start to lift our hips up into the sky for downward facing dog. Take a few breaths right here. Feel your heels soften towards the earth. Notice your thighs lift up a little bit. Feel the belly coming down and in towards center. And then softening the shoulders or keeping them up by the ears, whatever feels best for you. Pressing firmly into those hands, we're going to look back at our toes, bend our knees, and start to take a nice slow walk up towards the top. From here again, use that hip hinge, press those hips back. Maybe see if you could bring your hands right below your knees, and then fold forward, tuck your chin in. Press into your feet, lift your body all the way back up to stand. And then guide your palms into prayer center of the heart. Good. So that was a semi-modified sun salutation A, okay? We're going to go through a fully expressed one, but continue to repeat the modified one until you build up that appropriate strength, okay? So I'm going to do a full out version of sun salutation A. And I'm going to do it also using the Sanskrit words for this sequence. So it's inhale Urdhva Hastasana, exhale Uttanasana. Inhale, lengthen Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, refold, plant the palms, step back, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. This time I'm pressing into the shoelace sides of my feet, lifting up my thighs for upward facing dog. And then I'm going to flip over my toes as I come into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Good, I'll take a breath right in here. And then gazing back at my toes, I'll bend my knees again and walk back up to the top of the mat. Lengthening out the body for Ardha Uttanasana, and then folding for Uttanasana. Pressing into the feet, rising up to stand, Urdhva Hastasana. Bringing the palms into prayer, Samastitihi. Okay? So, like I said, we have modifications. You have a bunch of stuff to prep yourself for everything that we just did right here. When you're submitting the videos, 3 separate videos, I'm looking for Chaturanga either from your knees or from your toes with no sagging bellies. 2, I'm looking for your hip hinge. And 3, I'm looking for your version of a Sun Salutation A. And when I say your version of a Sun Salutation A, I mean that it could be modified the entire time. You never even have to do a tall cobra. Make it simple and make it strong and powerful for your body to build that strength versus harm it. Okay? Look back to those 8 limbs. Check out Ahimsa.